Hello and welcome. I'm Amritanshu Rai and you're watching Law of the Land on Raj Sabha TV. Today we bring to you the National Food Security Bill 2011, which seeks to give legal rights to a large part of the citizen for food. It also lays down a mechanism to ensure compulsory food distribution. To discuss the issue, I have with me Mr. N.C. Saxena, Member, National Advisory Council, and Biraj Patnaik, Principal Advisor to Supreme Court Commissioners. Now for the headlines. The National Food Security Bill 2011 provides for food for a large part of the citizens. Focus will be on the most neglected. Citizens to get rice at 3 rupees per kg, wheat at 2 rupees per kg, and coarse cereals at 1 rupees per kg. The National Food Security Bill increases spending of government by 25,000 crore rupees nearly. Farmers likely to benefit as government procurement may rise. The National Food Security Bill 2011 provides for food and nutritional security to large part of citizens of India. The bill proposes to make distribution of quality wheat, rice and coarse cereals by government mandatory and legally enforceable right. The bill provides doorstep delivery of food to needy, lactating mothers and growing children.
There have been several incidents of death due to starvation all across the country due to famine, poverty and crop failure. With no legal framework to prevent such incidents, the government proposes to bring in the National Food Security Bill. The Food Security Bill seeks to provide everyone food.
Consider the Food Security Bill in the context of the rather unfortunate and unenviable reputation we have as the land for the largest number of children, women and men going to bed hungry. In spite of all of our advances, everybody agrees that in the area of nutrition, malnutrition, we do not have a good position.
Let's take a look at the highlights of the National Food Security Bill. The bill proposes to make right to food a legal right. The bill envisages distribution of wheat, rice and coarse grains to 75% of rural households and 46% priority rural households. Up to 50% of the urban people and 28% of the priority urban households will be covered under this scheme. Every person in the priority category will get 7 kilograms of food grains, that is, rice at 3 rupees per kg, wheat at 2 rupees per kg, and coarse cereals at 1 rupee per kilogram per month. The general category would get at least 3 kilograms of grains at a rate not exceeding 50% of the minimum support price. The subsidized food is expected to cost the government 95,000 crore rupees per year.
Impact of the bill would be that the total people who are getting subsidized food grains would increase from 6.5 crores today to about 18 crores, out of which 10 crores will get at a highly subsidized price of 2 rupees and 3 rupees, and also coarse grain at 1 rupee a kilo. So therefore, I think the bill would certainly help India to solve its problem of hunger.
The second thing about it is they're saying the center will decide who will be a priority, but the states have the responsibility to provide the food. Now this ends up being about politics more than about food security.
This bill is the most important initiative of the UPA government after Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act or MGNREG Act. The National Advisory Council, headed by UPA Chairperson Sonia Gandhi, after several rounds of deliberations, finalized the proposal of Food Security Bill earlier this year. Reshma Roy, Rajya Sabha TV.
The bill is such a landmark and original piece of legislation that it will be hard for the opposition to oppose. What do you say, Mr. Saxena? The first thing is on the implementation bit. How easy or how difficult will it be to implement?
In fact, many policy issues have yet to be taken by Government of India. For instance, we have decided that 75% rural population would be covered, but this 75 cannot be uniform throughout all the states. So if you want to exclude 25%, maybe you should exclude 50% in Chandigarh and exclude maybe only 10% in a poor district. So therefore, first of all, on what basis are you going to exclude or include people? And on what basis you are going to decide the general and priority households? So these are the issues on which I am sure Government of India and the Rural Development Department and the Food Department
and most of all the parliamentarians.
They all have to decide. These are
Deliberate.
administrative issues on which decisions need to be taken.
Biraj, the point to you is deciding the priority, what Vandana Shiva brought out. Is that a big issue?
In fact, it's not only a big issue, it's the most crucial issue in the bill. And the bigger issue is the, this government. I think there is something fundamentally wrong in the way that they've approached the PDA section of this bill. And despite the Supreme Court's directions which led to government withdrawing the poverty caps of 26 rupees and 32 rupees, this government, it had to withdraw that. Jairam Ramesh and Montek Singh Ahluwalia made a joint statement. But they somehow seem to believe that there is no joy in being wounded without the pleasure of a scar. And they have brought a legislation that repeats the same mistake. We should have taken this opportunity to do away with the poverty caps, number one. Number two, the fact that Government of India is now saying that insofar as state governments are concerned, they will not be allowed to include anyone in this food security ambit who have been designated as excluded households within the scope of this bill. Which means that if Tamil Nadu today has a universal public distribution system where they want to give it to everybody, after this bill is enforced, they will not be able to do so. And since food is a state subject, I believe that this bill is fundamentally flawed, it is unconstitutional, it violates the federal spirit, and some clauses of it will not stand scrutiny in a court of law.
I'll bring in a little bit of information on the bit of the priority and the other areas, the identification bit. The Planning Commission is already working on it, and they've got certain parameters which will determine eventually the targeted focused distribution. How important when both of them come together, when this priority will be explained by the policy of the Planning Commission, where they set parameters that if you qualify on 5 parameters, then you are priority. If you don't qualify on 5 parameters, then you are not priority. So if once you club that policy with this proposed policy, do you think it will be easier to identify priority and the non-priority?
Well, just now it is quite confusing because if you look at the identification process which is going on in the states, there are states like UP and Bihar which account for roughly 30 to 35% of the poor people. They have not started the whole process. So therefore, it might take another 6 months before this process is complete. Even when you look at the results of those states which are doing it just now, it appears that there are going to be large number of errors of inclusion and exclusion, and comparability suffers. So therefore, in one district you find that many people who should not be in the category of those who are included are there. In some other district, they are the errors of inclusion and exclusion are of a different nature. So therefore, I do not know. I am a little bit confused as to how government is going to sort out these issues.
Welcome back. The National Food Security Bill, aimed at making food available to all, burdens the government with an extra spend of 25,000 crore rupees. The bill also depends on the weak Public Distribution Scheme, PDS, for implementation. In order to implement the proposals, the government procurement is likely to rise by a certain percentage, benefiting the farmers.
The government presently distributes over 5 lakh tons of supplies under the public distribution system. If the proposed bill is approved, the government will have to distribute over 6 lakh tons of supplies.
From independence to recently, we have focused on producing our food as the foundation of food security. Unfortunately, food production is totally missing in this bill. It is handing over production to whoever can supply, whichever global agribusiness can supply. And it is trying to move towards cash transfers rather than the government helping farmers grow food, getting an adequate income, providing the farmer with minimum support price, and then you have government procurement and run a universal public distribution system. Because we are talking about this bill in the time of continuous food price rise. There's nothing in the bill about controlling the price rise and stopping the speculation and super profits.
The proposed bill seeks to provide meals to special groups such as destitute, homeless, person living in starvation and disaster-affected persons. The bill also focuses on nutritional support to women and children. The bill provides for cash payment to state government for procurement under this bill. This can happen in a situation where the centre is short on supply of food to be provided to the state. In case of non-supply of food grains or meals to entitled person, the concerned state would be required to provide food security allowance. The bill also provides for monitoring and grievance redressal system under the law. According to the bill, there will be District Grievance Redressal Officer (DGRO) at the district level, State Food Commission (SFC) and National Food Commission (NFC) will be set up at the state and centre level. In case an officer is found violating the law, a penalty of 5,000 rupees will be imposed if found guilty.
Bill, in addition to giving grain through the PDS, also talks about setting community kitchen for the destitute, for looking after these people who are starving, for pregnant mothers and lactating mothers to get certain amount of money every month, 1,000 rupees every month.
The food security bill hinges on the public distribution system, which is in a bad shape. According to the bill, the distribution system will be the responsibility of the state governments. But the states have not been able to rise up to the expectations of the people as far as the public distribution scheme is concerned.
It is unlikely that the landmark bill is going to face any serious opposition because no party would like to be seen as opposing a pro-people's bill. With camera person Gajendra Singh, Reshma Roy, Rajya Sabha TV.
It is the public distribution system which will need to be strengthened in order to prevent leakage and ensure delivery. And states like Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu have already shown the way. So the question to you, Biraj, is cash payment option.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of a system never existed and doesn't exist now. Do you think the states will actually be able to get away from their actual responsibility of providing quality and quantity to the individual, but this provides them a escape route? You give them money, allowance, and get away with it.
Well, I think there are three issues here. There are some kinds of cash transfer programs like pensions and maternity benefits, of which maternity benefits of 1,000 rupees is very welcome, and we do need that.
No, but in this sector.
But in so far as the PDS is concerned, there are two what I consider extremely dangerous options. First option is the force majeure clause, which comes as section 52 of the bill, which says that if there's a calamity, if there's a riot, a disaster, an earthquake or a fire, then government doesn't need to provide food grains and can instead provide cash. Now tell me, if there is an emergency or a disaster, that's when people need the food the most. You know, you cannot, what will you do with a wad of notes if there's no food available in a flooded situation? So I think that's one thing that's really, counterintuitive in this bill. The second issue is the provision that has been given to the state governments to give cash instead of food if the central government is in short supply of food. Yes. Now tell me, if the government of India is unable to procure food grains and give it to a state that needs the food grains because food availability is short there, how will a food security allowance help people?
So is that a genuine concern?
In fact, I think these are exceptions because riots don't take place every day, and for the last at least 10 years, Government of India has never been short of food. In fact, as everyone knows, food is getting wasted in our godowns. So therefore, the stock with Government of India should be sufficient. And don't forget that we are exporting 7 to 10 million tons of food grains. If there is a shortage of production, this export can be reduced. The point which has been made in the bill is that in case Government of India supplies food grains to the state and the states are not able to deliver because of the shortages of PDS, then the states are liable to pay an allowance to the cash allowance to the person. This, I am sure, will put more pressure on the states to improve their PDS system, because if you look at the present picture, you will find that states like Chhattisgarh or Tamil Nadu or other states where PDS has been working well are those states which are putting their own money. And PDS is not working so well in Bihar, because there everything comes from Government of India. Therefore, I think that in order to get the stake of states raised and to involve them in the program, this is a good clause, and the states will, because states will not like to pay any amount, so therefore they would put more effort in improving the PDS.
The point, yeah, Biraj, the question.
Amritanshu, I'll just come on this point. If you read the clause, it says, in case of short supply of food grains from the central pool to a state, the central government shall provide funds to the extent of short supply to the state government for meeting obligations. Now, of course, as Dr. Saxena has rightly pointed out, given the current food grain situation in the country, it's not likely to happen. But we must bear in mind the fact that unless we do take urgent steps for agricultural production and for increasing agricultural productivity, within the next 15 to 20 years, we are looking at a situation where we might have a shortage of food grains.
Biraj, the question that I wanted to bring you to is the PDS.
Yes.
See, the PDS is a big concern. It has been working right in 2 states. Yes. The point is that the entire bill puts a lot of burden on PDS, creates a separate bureaucracy to monitor it, creates a vigilance to ensure that the PDS is done, and broad bases the distribution system, gives it to panchayats, gives it to other people and their agencies. Right. Do you think by saying so many things in the bill, it's actually going to improve and tighten the mechanism?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say that the public distribution system that is being proposed here comes with a package of reforms. Reforms which have worked in not just 2 states, but almost 10 states now, as a study by Jean and Ritika recently showed that out of the 10 states they surveyed, barring 2, which is UP and Bihar, the PDS was doing well in the other 8 states. So that's one point. The second point is that if you read closely, the PDS is less than a fifth of the bill, in a sense. The ICDS, the midday meal program, the other programs that are being talked about, they form a large majority. I'm not so worried about the PDS failing, because I think the major flaw in this, so far as the PDS section is concerned, is the extraordinary burden that is being placed on state governments and the control, the over-centralization. There's nothing about panchayats, there is very little decentralization, and you are actually taking away, you're giving the states the accountability, but you are taking, if you read the financial memorandum, for instance, closely, every decision is left to the state government.
In fact, PDS is a much maligned program. But if you go and ask the respondents, the consumers, you will find that except in a few states like Bihar and Jharkhand, everywhere people have been getting their rations properly. There has been a survey recently done which shows Andhra Pradesh 100%, Chhattisgarh 95%, Himachal Pradesh 96%, Odisha 86%, Tamil Nadu 92%. So therefore, there are, what is wrong with the PDS is, number 1, errors of inclusion and exclusion. Number 2, ghost ration cards. Number 3, many families have been given just 1 card. And therefore, these are more serious problems. But the person who has got a BPL card or Antyodaya card, he's getting it. But he's getting it. But there are leakages because of other factors.
But
those need to be sorted out.
We'll come back to you, Biswajit. It's time for us to head into a break. When we come back, we will tell you what former Agriculture Minister Sompal has to say about the bill. Welcome back. My colleague Reshma Roy spoke to former Agriculture Minister Sompal and tried to understand the impact of the bill.
There are already PDS and integrated child development services which aim at reducing hunger and poverty in India. Do you think the NFS can make any difference?
You see, it subsumes all of them. This is the difference, because they were piecemeal. Like the cooked fresh food served in the schools, integrated child development scheme, Now it has brought in some other components also, like the nursing mothers or the mothers who delivered the child. There are certain entitlements in terms of food, there are certain entitlements in terms of cash also. So all these schemes probably would be subsumed under this new legal frame, and this will be an integrated food security system. So this is the basic difference.
6% of the rural and 28% of the urban priority household would be benefited of this bill. So what are the provisions to identify these priority households?
That is what I say, because the data along these lines have not been collected, and these are the totally new nomenclatures and new norms which have been prescribed under this law. So whether it will be a mere change of the nomenclature based on the data that have been collected according to the earlier format, or we will have a new format, that is what I have apprehended. Even in terms of defining the priority groups, it's a loose term that has been applied for the first time. So who would be priority group? What would be the criterion or criteria to say that these are the priority groups and these are the non-priority groups?
Do you think the expenditure that this bill involves is huge?
Definitely it's going to be a problem, because if you see at the composition of the total budget, it is classified in several ways. One is the revenue expenditure, second is the capital expenditure, and both these heads are subcategories of two main categories: the non-plan expenditure and the plan expenditure. Of late, two phenomena which we are witnessing for the past now 5 plans, that continuously and progressively plan expenditure as a component of total expenditure envisaged under the budget has been coming down as a percentage. And within the non-plan as well as the plan expenditure, the capital component, which is the real investment for future growth, has been progressively coming down. This kind of gigantic, huge program of food subsidy covering 67% of people in India would put a very huge burden on the finance, and whether our finances are capable of bearing that is a very, very big question. That is the biggest apprehension that is expressed and which I share. So that has not been clarified. So, and now it will go on eroding into the capital expenditure.
The government is expecting the Parliament to further tighten the food security bill so that the final act helps in delivering the services as envisaged by the bill. Dr. Saxena, to you. The burden on the state and the point that was made by the former agriculture minister, very seasoned voice in matters of agriculture.
No, I have a different viewpoint on this. If you look at the total revenues and total expenditure of all the state governments and Government of India, it is about 22 lakh crores. Now, 30,000 crores, which is the additional burden because of food subsidy, because of the food PDS, is only about 1.5% of the total expenditure. And if you also look at the non-merit subsidies which are given to the rich, I am sure that we should cut down on those subsidies which are given to the rich. If need be, those who are paying income tax on incomes of more than 10 lakh rupees a year, there could be surcharge on them. So I am in favor of not exceeding the fiscal deficit. One should try to control fiscal deficit. So therefore, this 30,000 crores can easily be met either by reducing the subsidies given to the rich or by imposing a tax on them, which is not much because, as I said, it's only 1.5%.
Biraj?
No, I completely agree with this view. In fact, if you look at the coverage in the mainstream media, particularly the non-state television, corporate media, you know, the middle classes in India go into a mourning when anything is announced to the poor. We've seen that happen with the NREJ. A lot of wise people came on television shows like this and said it's going to drive the treasury bankrupt, it's going to cost 1,50,000 crores. Experience has shown us we've never exceeded more than 40,000 crores on NREJ. Similarly, when this bill is being brought about, people are coming up with these fantastic figures. One gentleman came up with the figure of 6 lakh crores, somebody else came up with the figure of 3 lakh crores. I think this is an attempt by one section of the government which is opposed to the direction in which these policies are taking us. And there is a lot of confusion that is being created in the minds of the middle classes vis-a-vis what is a privilege and what is an entitlement. I think we have to learn as a country to be more graceful when the government does, on a rare occasion like this, end up doing something for the poor, which normally it doesn't.
Dr. Saxena, the point about hunger you wanted to make.
In fact, recently a report has come out from the International Food Policy Research Institute, which shows that between 96 and 2011, during this 15 years when India's growth rate was very, very high, India is one of those 3 unfortunate countries in the entire world where hunger has gone up. Countries like Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, every other country has reduced its hunger. It's only in India where the hunger index has gone up, which shows that our programs, as they are being run, they do not address the real issue of the needy and those who are hungry. And therefore, this food program should be seen in the light of the findings that hunger has gone up, and therefore we must do something to control that.
That's all we have time for. Thank you, sir, for joining us in this discussion. It's time for us to end the show. You can email your suggestion and comments to law.rstv@gmail.com. You can also watch our shows on the YouTube. We'll be back with a new issue and a new episode. Keep watching Raj Sabha TV.